Anne's husband, film, was promoting this wonderful film, Frack Nation. It's pro-fracking. Now, who can explain what fracking is? Yes.
It's the harvesting of oil from shale and other kinds of rock through a process of using pressurized, high-pressured water, which is drilled into the ground.
Spoken like an engineer or physicist.
Yes.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah,
Well,
very
he
good.
knows what he's talking about.
It could be natural gas too, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So anyway, he wrote this, did this great documentary, and he was in Philadelphia promoting his documentary, and he got on this crime website and saw that there was this trial going on in Philadelphia.
Do I need to check?
Kermit Gosnell. We'll have a free will offering afterwards, but she'll sell her books at the very end,
I'll tell you.
and she'll explain that. So, by the way, the books are $30, and it'd be nice if she doesn't have to take any back to Southern California with her.
Two books. 3 words.
Okay. And anyway, her husband filmed, Irish-born like Anne is, and it took 2 Irish-born people, wonderful Catholics, to do this. Had it been us Americans, this wonderful book and wonderful movie never would have happened. And this movie, and you'll see a trailer of it in her talk, it's a game changer, let me tell you. It's something that can instantly convert people who consider themselves pro-choice. We know that really is a code word for pro-abortion. So it's that significant. But anyway, he's in Philadelphia, he goes to the trial, and he's astounded there's nobody in the courtroom except for the officials, the court reporters, the lawyers, the media. All the seats reserved for the media were empty. And that's where the idea was hatched for the book and the movie. Without further ado, please welcome Anne McElhinney.
I think I might start with showing the trailer, just in case we have any problems with technical stuff after this. Can we? Yeah, thank you very much.
You're looking for anything that looks like drugs or paraphernalia. Philadelphia Police Department, we have a search warrant.
What is that smell? Man, you got to see this. This is one? I don't know. I've never been in an abortion clinic before. You are not going to believe what I saw last night.
How many?
So far, we found over 30 of them. Healthy woman goes into a clinic, comes out dead, and there's no police report? Files have been moved recently. Look at this.
You'll be the prosecutor who went after reproductive rights, and you'll be a racist to boot.
You've got a lot of folk who'd like to see abortion outlawed. And this is not going to be the case that gives them an excuse.
The prosecution has offered you a plea bargain, Dr. Gosnell. But I would have to admit I was guilty. I'm not guilty.
When you get to the courthouse, you are going to be swarmed by reporters.
You ready for this, counsel? Where's everybody?
When was the last time your division inspected Dr. Gosnell's clinic?
We had instructions directly from Governor Ridge's office not to inspect.
Couldn't testify in that case about anything. Not to find a doctor who will.
When you look at the facts, you will see what I see.
An overly zealous Catholic investigator. Is that what you want to make this about?
There's nothing that man did that protects women or children, and you don't have to be a pro-life activist to see that.
Kermit Gosnell is perhaps the most prolific serial killer in American history.
You better win.
So October 12th, very important. Get it in your diaries already.
Isn't that trailer thrilling?
Oh, it's good. That was very good.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah,
I tear up every time I see it.
so I'm the producer of the Gosnell film, and also the author of the book Gosnell, America's Most Prolific Serial Killer, which is now a New York Times bestseller, even though the New York Times didn't want to acknowledge that originally. By the way, this microphone is not on. It's lit up and everything, but obviously it's not working. So
I don't think we need it here.
yeah, I don't know what that was, how that works. Anyway, So I'm just going to dive right in about how did we ever decide to do this? How did this ever come about? It's kind of odd that we should be the people who ended up telling this story. We've made documentaries criticizing the environmental movement. That's been kind of our shtick for 10 years. And then my husband came across this story very much by accident in Philadelphia. He was in Pennsylvania promoting the Fracnation documentary and heard about this local crime story that had happened in Philadelphia, and went along to the courtroom where there was, they took a really large courtroom because they expected a huge crowd of journalists to turn up. And then, as you all know, I think you're all experts probably on this, crickets, it was like the Mary Celeste, there was no one there. And he was really shocked as a journalist that journalists weren't covering this, because the evidence that was being presented was so shocking, and the testimony of the people who were witnesses to what had happened at the clinic was so shocking. And then he turned around and they had these reserved seats for journalists, and the journalists didn't turn up. And I like this quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who, I don't know if you've read Eric Metaxas's book, which I couldn't recommend enough. Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak, not to act is to act. And it's extraordinary in every part of this story, the number of people who remained silent, and the number of people who didn't act in the face of extraordinary, unbelievable, outrageous evil that people allowed to have happen. So in the courtroom, opposite the jury, they projected images that that witnesses would then refer to, and also to help the jury to keep all the names and all the faces in their minds about who exactly were they dealing with. And this is one of the pictures that was shown to the, and by the way, for anyone who's nervous there, I'm not showing any photographs of children. Don't worry, I'm not doing that. So this is the photographs of the people who worked at the clinic. And up at the top you can see there, that's Kermit Gosnell, who is in his 70s now. Went to prison, he was about 71 when he went to prison in 2013. He's got 3 life sentences for the deaths of 3 children that were born alive, and that he cut their necks with scissors, which was his modus operandi, and he operated with that method for 30 years. So many people, not just us, have described him as America's most prolific serial killer. However, he is not on any list of serial killers in America, but we'll do our very best to change all that. And by having him be the most prolific serial killer in American history, you acknowledge the humanity of the children, and it's really important to do that. And it's a reason why they don't want him on that list, because then you're acknowledging that these were people that were killed, It wasn't tissue that was killed, it was people. And here's the people who worked at the clinic. So the woman at the middle at the top is his wife, Pearl. The woman beside her is Ashley Baldwin. And Ashley Baldwin, some of you know the case and probably watched it and followed it quite, religiously at the time. Ashley Baldwin was the woman who famously brought her daughter to work, Tina Baldwin, who became the chief anesthesiologist in the clinic at the age of 15. And actually, funny enough, thanks be to God, because actually she was quite, she was a proper young person, with mental, solid mental health and all of that, and didn't have any substance abuse issues, unlike everyone else who worked there, who had either substance abuse issues, mental health issues, criminality in their past. So Ashley Baldwin is actually, a very, clean thinking 15-year-old, and she took her job very, very seriously. In fact, created a cheat sheet with colours, and she would see people come in, and she'd try to work out the cocktail of what she should give them in terms of anaesthesia. Can you believe that? 15-year-old. And she never killed anyone. Like no one died under her watch, which is, because she took it all very seriously. But for those of you who know anything about the medical profession, anaesthesia is incredibly exacting as a science, and getting people to wake up again after anaesthesia. I mean, incredible responsibility. And people being different, that red-haired people are different than the rest of the population in terms of anaesthesia, and Asians are different. And so an Asian person needs to be treated differently. And unfortunately, there was an Asian person who went there, and of course didn't get the treatment they should have gotten if they'd been in a hospital. And then she died, carnimia monger. But I'll tell you more about her in a minute. Then, kind of going through the rest of them, Madeline Joe underneath Ashley Baldwin, and then underneath her, those 2 blondes at the bottom there were known as the Delaware Girls, Sherry West and Linda Williams. Detective Jim Wood famously said, these 2, you wouldn't let them mow your lawn, let alone give anesthesia to anybody. And during the day, Gosnell didn't come to the clinic until the night time. He was never there during the day. He worked at another clinic in Delaware, and then at the evening he would come to his own clinic at 3801 Lancaster in West Philly. And he'd come in the evening at like 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night. Hello. It's in somebody's bag.
That's me.
It's in that bag. And he'd, yeah, so he'd come in the evening. And then we need to get that. Oh, there it is there. There you go.
Thank you.
So he would come in the evenings, and so during the day, this collection of people here would be in charge of medicating people who would come to the clinic, and mostly medding them up, just filling them up with Demerol and Cytotec. Cytotec was the drug used so the women would dilate, so they would continue to dilate them, and the babies fell out. The babies fell out alive. So then you have the two Delaware girls at the bottom, and then you have Liz Hampton at the bottom here. Here on the side here, you know, who's a violent alcoholic in her own, and she admits that herself. That's who was running the place. That's who people ended up seeing if they went there. The woman in the middle, the black girl in the middle, the good-looking girl there, is Adrienne Moten. And Adrienne Moten, very famously, is the girl who took the photograph of Baby Boy A. I'll talk more about Baby Boy A in a moment, but Adrienne Moten has had, you know, a conversion experience and has thought differently about everything at this point in her life. So all of these people went to prison, everyone there, for a period. Obviously Gosnell is in prison for 3 life terms, but Pearl went to prison, and Ashley, all of those went to prison for a period of time. Not that long, none of them for that long, except for this one. Steve Massoff, who's in a different category, and I've put him separate there. Steve Massoff is in prison for like 14 years, but he might get out earlier than that. He's from Philadelphia. He's from a nice home, you know. He's from a middle class, you know, like a proper upbringing, like a proper upbringing. And he's one of those guys who couldn't get into medical school in America, so he went to the West Indies. You know the way you can do that? And it's easier to get in. So he went there and got a medical degree, came back to America, couldn't get a residency, and started working in a pub. And you know, the devil was at work there because his brother-in-law was a pharmaceutical rep and knew Gosnell and knew that Gosnell needed help, and he got him a job in there. So Steve Massoff went to work for Gosnell as a, you know, as a fake doctor, really. But he took to the work with relish, and the work was taking in women at any stage of pregnancy, filling them up with Cytotec, filling them up with drugs that would induce birth, and the baby born alive, and then they killed them with scissors. And they were taught how to do that. And this guy, on the stand, under pain of perjury, under oath, you know, described what he did. And you know, even had the judge feel the back of, he got the judge to feel the back of his neck and said, yeah, there, that's it. That's that soft bit there. That's where we cut. I mean, that's how he spoke. Like, just beyond belief. He talked about, I was a fireman in hell, he said. I ran with scissors. There were just so many of them. So he said that under oath, under pain of perjury. He's only one of many people who spoke these incredible words and told this incredible testimony. And I suppose what's really shocking is that nobody was there from the media. And if they were, they stayed briefly and didn't cover it. And you know, and if anyone, you know, to really prove that point, if you ever end up in an argument with someone, ask them to compare the coverage of this case where babies were murdered to, for example, Jodi Arias. Jodi Arias, who was a famous girl who killed the boyfriend in the shower. He was the Mormon, and everyone knows her name and everyone saw her. She was the one who ended up looking like the librarian when she gave evidence, and everyone got, like, you know, constant day-by-day updates on what was happening at that trial. She killed one person, obviously a massive tragedy for his family, but it wasn't the scale that was involved here. And equally, you know, anything like Michael Brown, one person died, and you know, and he was assaulted a police officer, you know, and that's how he ended up dead. But the whole world know about him, and nobody knows this story. We're changing all that. And by the way, again, just in case I didn't say it already, I'm not showing photographs of children. Don't worry, you're not going to see anything like that. I'll not do that. I'm not doing that. So, but this is where the children were stored. So they were in the basement in these bags, and they were also in fridges and in freezers. So he just deposited them anywhere. He had a dispute with the company that normally took the children away, and he just had them, you know, everywhere and stuffed into everything. So if you see on this photograph here, you can see Minute Maid. You know those Minute Maid, you know, large containers. He took the top off the Minute Maid. He took the top off like kitty litters containers, and put the children in there, and had them all over the place, stored everywhere, including in the place where people had their peanut butter and jello sandwiches. And that's what his own office looked like. So his own office and his house looked like an episode of Hoarders, if you watch that show, Hoarders. I'm fascinated by the show Hoarders, and it's very sad. It's an incredibly sad show, because the people have the people have mental illness to live in this squalor. So just to understand that this is the squalor of this medical establishment, and just to realise this is where people ended up. This is the only disturbing photograph I'm showing, and it's not he took cut the feet off the children, and then put labels on jars to show children's feet. So if you look at this one on the right hand side, you can sort of see the beginning of the name. So I know the name of that person, and in fact she's written to me on the Facebook page. And she had had an abortion there, and he kept the feet of her child, and the police had to go and tell her. And that photograph is on the internet, and it's like, they had to explain to her, look, we can't do anything about it, the photograph is on the internet, and that's your child's feet. She recovered the feet and had, prayers said over them, and they've been buried. But, one of the horrible things about this case was just the fact of the media blackout, and the media unbelievably not covering this case on a daily basis and explaining to people what had happened here. And this is the kind of testimony people heard. So this is I'm going to show you a piece of testimony here. This is a neonatologist being asked a question by the Assistant District Attorney, Christine Wexler. So I gathered therefore, is it correct that at 22, 23, 24, all the way up to full term, a baby feels pain? Yes. Let me ask you this by way of hypothetical. Let's say a baby is 22, 23, 24, 25, and one were to take a pair of scissors and put it in the back of the neck to cut the spinal cord. Would that baby feel that pain? Yes. So this is being said in a courtroom this century in Pennsylvania, in progressive Pennsylvania, and it's not news. And most people in America don't know it's happened. One of the things that I say about this story, that's a gift of this story, it's a terrible word to use, a gift, but this testimony is powerful. It's not, these aren't pro-life activists. This is doctors telling you about abortion. And it's good to know. And it's good to have this testimony. And it's one of the things in the book and in the movie that we're very careful about. Because one of the things that happened during the trial was that it was important for the prosecution and the defense, both, to explain to the jury the difference between legal abortion and murder. And I can tell you that the jury that we spoke to found the distinction rudimentary at best, and felt that both were beyond horrific, and that what was done inside the womb as opposed to what was done outside the womb, it was like morally irreconcilable. And do you understand my point? It's like, it's a piece of geography, like the distance is so tiny. It's like, really? We're going to make a distinction between that? But that's the law. And so people who hear this story and learn this story, and who come across this story as a crime story, which is how we're going to sell it, and how we sold the book, get an education that they hadn't asked for. And it's an education that they can't take back. And it's an education that changes. So I make the point that when I started working on this story and all of this story and learning about abortion, the only thing I could compare it to was the Holocaust. And do you remember the film Schindler's List? And do you remember how it was all washed out? The colours were this monochromatic thing, kind of gray, variations on grey, kind of a sepia tinted thing, except for there was one colour in it. And yes, those of you who saw it will remember this. There was a scene early in the film where you saw a toddler, like a little 3-year-old or whatever, coming along being held by a hand or whatever, and wearing a little red coat, one of those cute kids' coats, And you're thinking, like, what's this? One splash of colour in the whole film. Like, there's one piece of colour in the whole film, and that's it. And you think, like, whatever. And you kind of somehow parse it away in your head. You just think, oh, we're just focusing on a lovely little kid. Until later in the movie when Auschwitz gets liberated by the Americans, and then you see the massive, massive grave with all the dead bodies, and in the middle is this red coat. And it makes, that's what the Holocaust is about. It's hard, it's much easier to cry for the one child than to cry for millions, because it's so hard to get your head around millions. And so in this case, where millions have died in America, obviously 60 million plus babies, to focus the mind on one baby really helps and makes it much easier for people to sympathise and to get outraged. So at the centre of this story, and it's not, no one's making it up, at the very centre of this story is baby boy A. He's a real person who was born, shares a birthday with my own father, July the 12th, and was born in 2008 and lived for a while. But he had such an impact on the people who saw him struggle for life that they took photographs of him. 2 people took photographs of him. Karima Cross and Adrian Moulton, who you remember from that photograph. And when the cops caught up with Adrian Moulton, she said, I said to her, it must be terrible to get arrested. And she said, I wasn't arrested. I was rescued. And she had kept the phone. And you know the way when you've got a phone, you've got an old phone or whatever, you just throw it out or whatever. She kept the phone, and she said she knew someone would catch up with her one day. Somebody would come for the phone. And she handed them over the phone, and she said, there's a photograph in there you need to look at. And it went to Quantico. They sent the phone to Quantico to recover the photograph at the FBI headquarters. And I mean, it's amazing. And I write a lot about Adrian Moulton in the book, and she's had obviously a massive change of mind. And the whole thing is really bizarre. I mean, she herself had abortions that Gosnell did, and she paid for them by doing babysitting and by getting her boyfriend at the time to fix a fence at Gosnell's house. I mean, it's all this kind of really bizarre details. But Adrian Moulton is an amazing person. So she was arrested. I mean, she did it. She killed children herself. And famously, she took one child out of a toilet because the women were filled up with this cytotec, so the children fell out. Sometimes they'd be on the toilet and the child would fall out into the toilet. And there's a case of a child who tried to swim to safety. But Adrian Moulton lifted that child out of the toilet and cut its neck with scissors. But she remembered baby boy A, very, very distinctly remembered baby boy A. And she said that when she went to prison, nothing upset her more than the darkness when the lights went out. She didn't want them to turn the lights out because she said, I saw him. And I thought immediately that she saw Gosnell, and she said no, that she saw baby boy A, and all she could do was say, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. So, it's an incredible story. But in the middle of this terrible, terrible story, there's all kinds of good things and all kinds of good people. And it's important to kind of hang on to that stuff, because otherwise you just fall into complete despair, because it's so diabolical. It's a really good use of the word diabolical, by the way. And here's one of them. So, and I love this photograph that I got here, the one that got away. So you probably know, I mean, you know a lot, so I'm going to presume a lot, you know what I mean? So there was a raid on his clinic. He was discovered because of Oxycontin, because he was selling Oxycontin. He was selling prescription drugs. That was his business, and he was making a ton of money off it. And so you could go there as a drug dealer, and you'd get like a whole bunch of prescriptions for Oxy and cough syrup, which together is, you know, this hillbilly heroin that they talk about. And you know, it's a good money maker, very nice money maker, very clean and easy to do, and a lot of pharmacies were very helpful for him on that one. So this amazing Detective Jim Wood, who's a Catholic, heroic, amazing saint, he was doing this undercover narcotics operation, so he was following the drugs, and then when he'd get these drug dealers, he'd try and turn them and get them to work for him, because he wanted to find where the source was. He needed to know who's giving you the drugs. And this famous, and I have the tapes, and I've heard the tapes, where he turns one of these drug dealers, and you know, he's putting her under a terrible amount of pressure and saying to her, you know, I'm going to put you in prison forever. Do you want that? Do you want to go to prison forever? Otherwise you come and work for me. And she's like, no, I can't work for you. And he's like, okay, who's giving you the drugs? And then she famously actually spells it out, Gosnell. And that's the first that Jim Wood heard of Gosnell. But when he's putting this woman under pressure, who was working at Gosnell's clinic and trying to find out more from her, she told him about a woman who had died there, Carnamaya Monger. And that's what got Jim very, you know, fired up. So eventually there was a raid of the clinic. And on the raid there was the FBI, the DEA, and the DA's office. So a huge number of people, including 2 nurses from the Department of Health in Harrisburg, who all came along to raid this clinic on the same night. And they collected a lot of evidence, including 47 bodies. And I'm going to jump from thing to thing, and I might have to go back to where I was there a minute ago, but when you have a situation like that where there's this massive amount of evidence and it's kind of unclear what's been going on, and people are unclear what the law is in Pennsylvania in terms of abortion and all of that, you need to convene a grand jury, and the grand jury needed to go through everything. So a grand jury is just regular folk, you know, people knitting and people with their shopping and going, you know, going on to a child's birthday afterwards and all that sort of stuff. You had that grand jury sit for two years, almost 2 years, in Pennsylvania just to get through all the evidence because there was so much of it. And everyone speaks very highly of the grand jury, and the judge in the grand jury case, Renee Caldwell-Hughes, speaks very, very highly of the caliber of the people who had to endure this terrible, terrible ordeal, actually, to listen to this awful stuff. But one moment in it remains memorable, and when we heard it, the first time we heard it, we thought, okay, that's definitely going to be in the movie. And it was where a woman took the stand and was asked, like, what's your story? And she said, well, I was having an abortion there, and she was 7 months pregnant. And she went the first day, and again, when you're that late pregnant, it's a 3-day process. And the first day, he put the laminaria in, and then she said to him, like, what happens to the babies afterwards? And he said, we burn them. And she went home, and by the way, he didn't burn them, although we're not sure that he didn't actually burn some of them, actually. We're not 100% sure. And by the way, there's lots of things he did with the remains that remain. There's a lot of question marks over some of the stuff that he did that have not been completely resolved, because some of the babies are missing, like one really did go missing and stuff. But he, but she went off, she left and went home, you see. You went home that night, you come back the next day, you come back again, there's this back and forth thing. But she told her cousin about it and became, started to be unhappy about it. And the cousin phoned Gosnell and said, you're not getting your money back, and I don't do reversals. And then Christine Wexler famously said to her, what happened then? And she said, oh, my baby started kindergarten today. And the grand jury stood up and applauded. And no one had ever seen that before. They'd never seen that before in their life. And it was like the first good thing they'd ever heard. And it was so amazing, right? So this gets more amazing. For people out there looking for miracles, watch this miracle about to happen here. So when we were filming the movie and we went to Oklahoma City, we didn't have an actress to play that role. So we were like, everything was tough, right? Every part of this thing has been tough and very hard to get to where we are right now. So the director found a girl in an IHOP, a waitress in an IHOP restaurant, and said to her, would you like to be in a movie? And she's like, and she's quite sassy and everything. And she sort of said to him, oh yeah, like you're the first man who wanted to, really, do you want me to go up to your apartment to look at the script kind of thing? So they had this kind of really fun back and forth and everything. And he said, no, he said, I'm going to go up and get the script and I'm going to bring the script back down here and let's talk about it. And she ends up being the girl that played the role. And the film is not shot in sequence, right? You don't do it chronologically, you shoot it the cheapest way you can, right? So the first scene that she was in was the last scene that's in the movie. The last scene in the movie shows that baby, shows that child. And so she shoots that scene, and then the next scene that she shoots about a week later is the grand jury scene where she had told this amazing story. And so I go there that day, and there's a lot of extras and everything, and I'm on the set every day of the film. And she said to me, oh my God, come here, I have to tell you something. And I'm like, what? And she said, I've just read the script. This is my story. And so she was having an abortion in Houston, and this is what happened. So I filmed her telling the story, and I think it's really worth watching for a good thing, because everyone needs a good thing to look at. Don't look at the camera, look at me.
Okay. My name is Tessa Watley.
Yeah.
I'm playing Viola Brown in the Gosnell movie.
My voice will be in this, so just don't say yes or no. So you just spoke to me earlier. Why is this role important to you?
I actually symbolize with my character. I also was young and pregnant at once. I went in to actually abort my baby, and the nurse had let me hear my son's heartbeat. That's also something they're not supposed to do. But she let me hear the heartbeat of my baby, told me that was my baby's heartbeat, and said she'd be back to go ahead and do the procedure. So as I laid there for about maybe 4 or 5 minutes, she came in and said she'd be right in, and I laid there and I just started crying and decided it was something I couldn't do. I couldn't kill my baby. So I put my clothes on, I went out to my grandpa, told him I couldn't do it. He said, let's go. And I just feel I very much symbolize with my character in this, and my baby is now 6 years old.
Amen.
Who are you playing?
Viola Brown.
And what happened to Viola Brown?
she also went through the same thing. She decided not to go through the abortion, and she had her baby, and her baby is 5 years old.
What would you say to girls in the same situation?
If you have that opportunity and you decide not to go along with the abortion, don't do it. My son has been so much joy to me, and it's like when I look at him, I just can't believe that I was gonna kill somebody so precious that's a whole generation of me. And I'm so thankful to that nurse for giving me the opportunity to change my mind and have my baby, and it's been such a joy. Just there's days that I just lay in bed and watch him sleep. I'm so happy to have him. So if you have that opportunity, don't kill your baby. Have your baby. It's hard, but have your baby. It'll mean everything to you. Don't kill your baby. Have your baby. Sorry. Sorry.
That's a good segment.
Isn't that great?
That's a great segment.
Awesome.
I mean, isn't that just great?
Is that
No, that's just it's a random photograph I found.
good.
But isn't that just the most amazing? And like I didn't, that was like completely out of the blue. I didn't know that. Nobody knew that about her. And I just think it's such a beautiful story and so beautifully told, So there are good things, There are really good things. And it was funny, the film did attract, the film, when we did the crowdfunding campaign as well, we all kinds of amazing people have come into our lives as a result. You can imagine the kind of people have written to us. We did a crowdfunding campaign to pay for the movie. So we tried to raise $2.1 million, and we raised $2.3 million from 30,000 people, all over the world, by the way, all over the world. People sent money from all over the world. But most of the money came from the United States. And just amazing stories of people sending $50 a month, and unbelievable stuff, you can imagine. And people writing about, having had abortions and regretting it and trying to recover from that. Both men and women, and grandparents who lost children that they knew that they had lost. As I said, I think often about the Holocaust when I think about this, and I always refer people to Jonathan Sacks, Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, who is the chief rabbi in England, who famously was asked about Auschwitz and asked, where was God in Auschwitz? And he said it's the wrong question. The question is, where was humanity? Where was man? Where was man in Auschwitz? And the same question could be asked about 3801 Lancaster Avenue at the Gosnell Clinic. Where was man? Where was humanity? Because there were a lot of people around, there were a lot of people around, and I know people were very broken and they had 7th grade educations and they were alcoholics and whatever. But I mean, when you think of what they did on a regular basis there, it is beyond belief. And here's a kicker for you, which I just think is amazing. Student nurses went there for training, and none of them complained. And so Christine Wexler, the ADA, it's unbelievable. So where is the humanity? That's my question. Where is the humanity in people? So Christine Wexler, who was the assistant district attorney in this case, who's a rock star, just fabulous, and she's just great crack and great fun. We say great crack in Ireland, by the way, it's got nothing to do with drugs. It's spelled C-R-A-I-C, it's an Irish word. Right, so basically she said that these student nurses came in to the grand jury, to be asked questions or whatever, and she said she wanted to hit them. She was so angry with them that they had done nothing. Because basically they were racists. One part of it is racism. A lot of the people were poor African American people, and it was like, and famously one of the girls said, well, I thought that was what it was like in an urban clinic, and it's like, no, actually no, this isn't good enough for anyone. And interestingly, on the issue of racism, Gosnell, who is African American, is a racist. So he had a nice room for white women, and he did not have a nice room for black women. So he had a room upstairs for white women that was kept clean. But he didn't go to prison for racism. He went to prison for, obviously, And here are the people who, if you talk about dereliction of duty and just a lack of humanity. And at the centre of it, by the way, for any of you there who are conservative, which I think possibly is quite a few of you, Governor Tom Ridge, a Republican. He's the only politician we mention in the movie by name, and we're very proud of that. We think it's very important, actually, to call him out. He's a Catholic, apparently. Yeah, but I think he's a Catholic a bit in the same way that what's her name? God, what's her name? From Northern California. Correct, ma'am. Thank you very much. Oh, and the other one, Joe Biden. Another great Catholic, not so much. So, Governor Tom Ridge was elected governor in Pennsylvania on a pro-choice ticket. And once he became governor, he actually gave the kind of imprimatur, he gave out kind of a command and said that abortion clinics were not to be inspected and that nothing was to come in the way of a woman's right to choose. But he wasn't alone, but that was him, the Department of State, the Department of Health, the Department of Sanitation. I'm a conservative because I don't believe in big government. And if ever you needed proof for big government's failure, here you go. 2 women died at Gosnell's clinic. Samika Shaw, who was a young African-American woman, who died in 2000. In 2000, she died because of a botched abortion at Gosnell's clinic. And then Carnamaya Monger, who died also in 2009, who was a Bhutanese refugee. And neither of those deaths were investigated by the Department of Health in Harrisburg. Neither of those deaths were investigated. It's kind of hard to believe. Every time I say it, I still think, how is that even possible? These people, and the grand jury in this case were incredibly scathing of the Department of Health. As they said, the Department of Health inspect nail salons. But they didn't bother inspecting even though 2 women died. They never bothered. So they never went across the threshold. So in 17 years, they never went across the threshold to walk into the place. And if they had walked into the place, what would they have found? Cats walking around. A terrible, terrible smell of urine of cats. And human urine because the toilets were backed up with human remains. That's what they would have discovered. And they would have discovered the severed feet of children in jars in the same place where people had their peanut butter and jello sandwiches. That's what they would have discovered. So Carnamaya Monger would never have died if they had investigated the death of Samika Shaw. So where is the humanity? Where is the humanity? And just on that point, in case I haven't said bad enough about the Department of Health in Harrisburg, on the night of the raid, when they eventually all went in there, including 2 nurses from Harrisburg, when they went in and the cats are walking around, there's this incredible smell, there are babies' bodies piled up in the basement, there are the severed feet of children in jars, there were women lined up for abortions. And the police officer, Jim Wood, said, you're obviously not going to the 2 nurses, you're obviously not going to let them do anything. And they were like, oh, well, I'm not sure about that. They phoned Harrisburg. And the word came back, let him keep going. So he kept on aborting that night, even though there were cats walking around. Now, you know the way any of you who might run a pub or a restaurant or know anything much about the Department of Health, like they walk into restaurants and say, okay, everyone out. Like that's what they do. Yeah. They just say, it's over, we're closing the door right now. There's no like, finish your cup of tea there, sir. No, they're like, they close the place down, summarily close it down. In a restaurant, where the worst thing that's going to happen to you is food poisoning, right? And there are literally dead bodies of children there, and there are cats walking around, and he's eating breakfast cereal. And on the night, in fact, of the raid, he was eating teriyaki chicken. It's all true. And then the other dereliction of duty, of course, was the media, and the media's absence. And again, as I say, that the stories are so unbelievable from this clinic, and the fact that they weren't reported by the media. But one brave soul, one fabulous guy, J.D. Mullane, a local journalist in Philadelphia, famously took this photograph, and the guy in the photograph in the back there, that's Detective Jim Wood, took this photograph and tweeted it out. And you should be on Twitter, by the way. You really need to be on Twitter. And don't tell me you're old. It's nonsense. You've got to be on Twitter. And you can retweet other people's tweets and support people who are out there fighting the good fight. Because otherwise they're on their own out there. So he tweeted out this photograph, which kind of went viral. And people started to tweet, including people like Michelle Malkin, who was fabulous. Patricia Heaton, who was fabulous. And they tweeted up a storm. It became this thing called a Twitter storm, where it created all this pressure. And eventually, this famous op-ed was written, opinion piece was written by Kirsten Powers for the USA Today. And just to remember that Jodi Arias, you remember Jodi Arias? Jodi Arias is the one that she killed the Mormon boyfriend in the shower, and there was all these sexual details. We got that daily. Everyone got that story daily in the news. We got constant information about Jodi Arias. Her name is known, people recognize her face. At the very same time, in a court in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, this guy was on trial for murdering babies, and no one knows who he is, and the story wasn't reported on. That's the media for you in this country, you know? Trump, All hail Trump. You know, Trump gives out about fake news. He's right to give out about fake news. There's fake news for you. That's what fake news looks like. So the whole country know who Michael Brown is, but nobody knows who Samika Shaw is. To me, that's wrong. Michael Brown tried to kill a police officer. Samika Shaw died after a botched abortion, and we're not talking about her. Unbelievable. And then I kind of threw this in kind of randomly, which is this thing of, so I have 2 cats now, and I love them. One of them is called Mr. Scaredy Cat, and the other one's called Mr. Top Cat. And I used to be a cat person, but I'm a cat person now. And people love cats, and people love dogs, and people love puppies, and people love looking at videos of puppies. And I'm all about it, and I could watch that stuff forever. If somebody can love a puppy, they could love a child. And I think it doesn't take much to push people over, and this is why this film is significant. People have to be converted. There's a chance now with Brett Kavanaugh that there's a real chance that Roe will be reversed, right? And by the way, it's got nothing to do with abortion. It's wrong. It should never have come in. It's nonsense. It's a nonsense case. But if that happened, don't think that you've got anything solved. You have nothing solved if that gets reversed. You have zero. You have less than zero solved, actually, because then the people will be asked to vote. And I will give you the petri dish of what has just happened in Ireland. Ireland, the island of saints and scholars, where 2/3 of the population voted to have abortion on demand, basically. So you can have that here. And the reason you won't have that here is that people's hearts and minds are changed. And nothing succeeds like a movie. Nothing. Nothing. People watch movies. This is America. You invented the movie. People go to the movies, they watch a movie, and their heart gets moved, and they change. Look at what it did to the Vietnam War. This is how it works. Hollywood is incredibly powerful. And most of the content, as you well know, coming out of Hollywood is pro-abortion. Very, very strong pro-abortion Hollywood. So this film is significant. And I've watched people be converted by watching this film and by hearing the stories. And in the middle of this story, there's this great cop, Detective Jim Wood. And Christine Wexler, the ADA, said about him, Jim Wood is remarkable. They couldn't have done this case without him. He was obsessed with Mrs. Monger. He was her champion. He was the only one. And it's just amazing. I mean, she was dead and buried, and no one knew anything about her until Jim Wood came along, found out about her, and I'm going to make sure people know about her. And then two other guys joined the task force. So there was Jim Wood, Jason Huff from the FBI, and Steve Doherty from the DEA's office. And these are the 2 ADAs that did the investigation, Christine Wexler and Joanne Pescatore, 2 mothers, super smart girls, and neither of them knew the law on abortion in Pennsylvania. And I can tell you, if they didn't know, no one in Pennsylvania knows. So the law in Pennsylvania, 24 weeks, 6 months. And obviously in different states it's different. I believe here it's probably up to 9 months. And this is the article that Christine Wexler, or that Kirsten Powers wrote, which is just extraordinary. And Steve Volk is a liberal journalist from Philadelphia who sat through the trial and said he changed his mind about abortion as a result of what he heard. And a lot of people who have gone through this have had that experience. I mean, if you're somebody who has a tough child in your life maybe, or a tough nut that you want to crack, I would suggest that you ask them a favour. Ask them a favour and say to them, go to see the movie. As a favour to you, as just a personal favour, would you ever go to the movie on the 12th of October? Just as a favour to me. You know, indulge your old mother here, indulge your father here, indulge me as your favourite godmother. Just indulge me, just do this wee favour for me. Sure, don't do you no harm. Sure, go to the movies, get some popcorn, and talk to me afterwards. It'll do no harm, you know. It's a Trojan horse. And then J.D. Mullane, as I said, you know, and they say one person can't change the world. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. And this is our team here. That's my husband in the middle. Behave yourself. Exactly. And then our business partner, Magdalena Segera, who's from Poland. So we're a bunch of immigrants, you know. This is what they say. What is it that they say? Yeah, you have to get immigrants to do jobs Americans just won't do. What's that? And we decided to do a crowdfunding campaign, and we asked for more money than anyone had ever asked for before. So the most that had been asked for was $2 million. We asked for $2.1 million, and we raised $2.3 million from 30,000 people in 45 days. And it's a great, and this is the poster for the movie, and that's what the campaign looked like. And it was amazing, the campaign, because it was scary, because every day you're thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen? No one's going to send us money. And then people did amazing things. One woman sent us $50,000, and that's not charitable. That's off the top of her money, you know. Another man in Boston sent $25,000. People sent $50,000. One person sent a check from Australia for $50 a month. You know, people are just amazing. People did amazing things. Mike Gallagher, do you know who that is? The radio.
Oh yeah.
I was interviewing with him, and one of the things we did, you know, because we had rewards. You give $25, you got a DVD. You did this, you got this, whatever, right? And we had a thing which I like cooking. I really like cooking. Yeah, I really like cooking. Let's just be honest about it. There's just no two ways about it. I love cooking, and I make extraordinary good meatballs, world famous meatballs. But I also make a very, very good meatloaf, an incredible meatloaf that everyone that knows me likes my meatloaf. So we had as a reward my meatloaf, $3,000. Good meatloaf, right? and we're in this interview with Mike Gallagher, and Mike Gallagher says, I'll have a meatloaf. And we I think I did like 5 meatloafs. Like people love the meatloaf. So, and we had another one which was very funny. We had one of a pub crawl. You know what a pub crawl is?
Yeah.
A pub crawl in Dublin. But you had to get to Dublin.
Yeah. Oh,
You had to meet us in Dublin. And a couple from, what's that? Tucson, not Tucson, no, beginning with T, north of, anyway, I can't remember where, I'm not going to remember the spot. But anyway, this couple came and we went on this pub crawl in Ireland, and yeah, they paid like a lot of money for that. And the same couple, that very same couple, paid for the transcripts of the trial. Because the transcript of the trial, you have to pay for them. You know who gets the money? Good one to know. Who gets the money?
The government.
No, the government, by the way, I have no problem with that, because at least, you know, it's because the government paid, which is, by the way, the stenographer. The stenographer gets the money. Isn't that some crack? The stenographer, who's already been paid. Yeah. Okay, and then these are the actors, some of the actors from the movie. Dean Cain, who you know as young Superman, and Sarah Jane Morris, she's from Tennessee, and Zoe, Alfonso Rachel. And here's some of the. So Michelle Malkin is a rock star. Like, and by the way, this is another reason why you should be on Twitter. Because then you could go home now, you see, and you could tweet to Michelle Malkin and tell her, "Thank you very much for being so nice to this movie." She gave us thousands and thousands of dollars of her own money. Thousands. Like, I think like $8,000 or $10,000, like a huge amount of money. She's also the voice. She will be the voice for the ads on the radio, and she did that for free. Right? That's who she is. That's who she is. And I see, if you're on Twitter, you could tweet and tell her she's great. Sarah Palin also tweeted out and was really very kind. And then I got on the Rush Limbaugh show. Long story short, but I got on the Rush Limbaugh show, and fabulous. And of course, $150,000 later, great, you know. Michelle Malkin, Rush Limbaugh, and this is. I'm just watching the time here. So this is our. On the set of the movie, we created the part of the clinic. So this is how we had the room where baby boy A was born. That was the room we created for it. And the first day of the shoot, I went down to have a look at the room, and I burst out crying just at the thought of people having been in a situation like that. Just was kind of overwhelming because you're standing in the room. And I took some photographs, and I put the photographs up on Facebook. And one of the things that's been amazing, I think I said that earlier, is that people have written amazing testimony to me and been in touch with me, like unbelievable people. I have these unbelievable relationships with people now. And here's one woman who wrote, and I just think it's beautiful, I wanted to share it with you. I was there, in a room much like that one, for a purpose now I'm not proud of and regret, but God is good. I'm grateful that I saw my responsibility and decades later repented, not realizing that the silenced voice of God was because of my unrepentant deafened ears. I'm grateful for this project, and I will pray. 10 years ago, I reconciled with God about my sin. I also reconciled with a child I murdered and threw away. I let her go again with dignity and a name, Julianne. Today, God has honoured my repentant heart in many great ways, and here, my first granddaughter, in which my kids named her after an aunt she never knew. And that's a photograph of the little girl. You know, thank you so much for doing this. I'm 52 years old, and when I was 26 I had an abortion. I've not been able to have kids since then, and it's a decision I regret deeply. I'll meet this child in heaven. I'm horrified over hearing about this clinic, and I'm so glad you're going to expose this. Thank you, and God bless you both. I love this one's funny. When I'm cleaning my replacement windows and the neighbour goes by, I smile and say, best money I ever spent. When at the end of my life I'm standing before God, He'll see my donations here, look me in the eye and say, best money you ever spent. So there's that. My heart hurts so badly for those innocent little babies who died such horrific deaths. We will never get to see their smiles again. I'm so incredibly heartbroken and devastated that their short lives were filled with such suffering and horror, treated like trash instead of being tenderly loved and cared for, like they so very much deserved. Those images will be burnt into my memory forever, and my tears flow like a river. Gosnellmovie.com is where you need to go to find everything that you need to know about this film. And the 12th of October is the date that the film is on. And what you can do is, you can, and then join the Facebook page, Gosnell Movie, join the Facebook page. But if you know anyone who has got money, you can go and bully them and tell them that they can buy out the local theatre. So what happens with movies is, if the movie doesn't do well the first night, the first 2 nights, it'll be gone. They'll take it out. It'll be gone. It doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter how much money we spend. They'll just take it out. It'll be gone from the theatre. But if it does well, they keep it. And if it does really well, they expand it into other theatres. And the idea would be that we go really wide, with 2,500 if we could. So we're starting at 750 theatres all over the country in every state. And if you go to gosnellmovie.com, you'll find where they're on. But don't write to me and say, why is it not on here? It's not, the list isn't complete yet. We're constantly going to get theatres. But we're having difficulties. It's not easy. So one thing that you can do is try to do these group sales. And you write to group@gosnellmovie.com. All of this stuff is on the website. All of this stuff is on the website. And if there's anything that you don't get here, and you think afterwards, oh my God, how do I get in touch? Write to me at Gosnell Movie on Facebook. So get on the Facebook page, and you know the way you can message. You can write a private message to a Facebook person. You can write, and I'm answering those. I'm on the road all the time. Next week I'll be in Dallas, Houston, Oklahoma City, and then Naples, Santa Barbara. That's next week. That's just next week. The following week, Little Rock, Columbus, Ohio, Cincinnati, North Carolina. I'm missing 1 or 2 there, yes. So we're on the road all the time, but I'm very, very good. I'm constantly, my face is stuck in the phone. This film has to go gangbusters. And if it does, and if it does really well, that's how you break through, and people who don't want to know about it, find out about it, even though they don't want to know about it. Because the billboard, the number, if you go high up on the number, the top 3, the top 1, top 2, the top 3 of the films that come out that weekend, it's a story, it's a news story. We're hoping that the president will tweet out about it as well. I think they're trying to kind of maybe keep quiet a little bit because, I suppose they're hoping that, that everything goes well with Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation. But, and we're hoping the very same thing happens too. But people's hearts need to be changed.
And mention Netflix.
And mention Netflix, yeah, and it'll go on Netflix. If we do well, it'll go on Netflix all over the country. And this is the book that we wrote. The thing, just to understand, that the book is not the movie. So the movie is suitable for children, as in 13-year-olds. It's PG-13. It's like Law and Order. If you watch Law and Order, it's like a Law and Order episode. You don't see anything. We don't show anything. But the book is not like that. The book is not like that. The book has everything in it. So anyone who wants to know what really happened, they can go to the book. And I just want to read a little bit from the book because a lot of people ask about the 47 babies. What happened to the 47 babies? So people wanted to get the remains of the 47 babies and to have some kind of a Christian burial for them and a mass and everything. And the city of Philadelphia again let people down and went and buried them secretly. But then, a lot of people put pressure on them. They were then told where the children were. So they had a service. They did have a service. On June the 10th, 2015, a small group of people gathered at Laurel Hill Cemetery overlooking the Schuylkill River to commemorate the 47 babies whose bodies were discovered frozen in Gosnell's clinic. The mourners consisted of clergy, pro-life activists and others, touched by the stories of how the children had died. Roman Catholic Archbishop Charles Chaput and pro-life activists had mounted a campaign to obtain custody of the babies from the city so that they might be buried properly. They had learned to their sadness that the babies had already been buried by the city on September the 12th, 2013. The medical examiner's office explained whatever, okay, and on and on. Alliance Defending Life attorney Catherine Glenn Foster acknowledged that in the end Philadelphia officials had fulfilled the wishes of all who wished to pay their respects to the babies. Today we can say that the city of Philadelphia has heard us. They gave these babies a place to be buried, she said. These babies were like any other, precious little persons. Foster told the mourners gathered in the summer sun, how a person dies doesn't make anyone less human. Try as hard as he might, neither their killer nor his infamy could erase these babies' humanity. We will use this sacred space to cry, to remember and to say this ends here. But the people who had petitioned for the babies' bodies felt that the city had let the victims down. It was wrong, they said, that the children had been buried secretly. The Reverend Patrick Mahoney, director of the Washington DC-based Christian Defense Coalition, said at the memorial, "I would simply say this to the medical examiner and the Philadelphia city government. These children were not unclaimed. We came for months after months seeking these children in love. They were not unclaimed. They were wanted, they were desired, they had meaning and purpose." It's a sentiment we share. It's the last line of the book. So I'm going to stop right now, and people can ask questions. 12th of October. 12th of October. Tattoo it on your face.
Let's hear it for Ann. Isn't she fantastic? Wow. So we had this incredible opportunity. This is a game changer, this movie. So what can you do? Well, obviously, watch that trailer, gosnellmovie.com, and watch it and rewatch it and rewatch it.
And send it to everyone you've ever met.
And send it to your friends, exactly. And the next thing we can do is tonight, if anybody would like to go to the her final talk tonight, it's over at St. Ignatius of Loyola in Iamsville, not too far from here, probably a half an hour, sort of between Mount Airy and Frederick, just south of I-70. We're having lasagna dinner at 6:15. You're welcome to come to that. But if you can't come, tell your friends that it's going to be on Facebook Live beginning at 7:40 p.m. So lots of opportunities. Now, thanks to Jim Eltop, he videotaped this wonderful talk you just heard, and that'll be posted on our website sometime very soon at thefemlife.org. Yes?
No. I'll send that out next Saturday.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
But she also mentioned that one of the single biggest things we can do is when that movie comes out October 12th, we've got to be there. But we can't wait. We've got to go out and buy out theaters now. If we know people who have a little bit of money, and it doesn't take a lot of money to buy.
No, it doesn't take a lot of money.
It could be as little as
It could
800.
be as little as 800, and it could be as much as about
maybe
3,500 at the top end, at the very top end.
So do that. Go to your pastors. Go to Christine Cunningham. She gets lots of money here. But get groups. It could be a Knights of Columbus Council to buy out appearances. You'll find out where they're going to be very soon by going to gosnellmovie.com. All the information's there. And if you don't see a theater in your area, then contact the group at gosnellmovie.com and say, hey, we want one here in Towson. We want here in Washington, D.C. I was thinking, we have this beautiful theater, the Senator Theater in North Baltimore, in a historic theater. Wouldn't it be great if we could buy out the large theater? I remember when the Passion of the Christ came, there were just tons and tons of people. You know, most of them were not Catholics. Most of them were evangelicals and Protestants. I mean, they were out there in the lobby praying and holding hands with each other. Catholics need to get out of their comfort zone. We don't end abortion. Abortion will be the end of America. It's that simple. Demographically, America is dying. This is a game changer. So let's make the very most of it and start thinking, who do you know who can cough up $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 and buy out appearances, and then figure out how we're going to get people. We should have busloads going to these movies, and tell our not so pro-life friends about it too, because if they watch this, even the trailer, it might have a dramatic effect. She tells one story about when she did her audiobook. She has an audiobook. And when she was doing the audiobook, the person who was basically supervising the recording was pro-abortion at the beginning. About halfway through the recording, she became pro-life. So that's great. Now, a couple of other things I want you to think about before we get back to her. The bishops are coming. We have a great opportunity to reach out to the good bishops. The church is in a state of flux. But this is good. I think this is wonderful, because God is purifying His church, and we're going to be much better off. It may be smaller, but much better. But there's many, many good bishops, and we want to honor them when they come to Baltimore. So if anybody is interested in working in that area, let me know. We're also looking just more volunteers for Defend Life. For instance, I'm being overwhelmed. I need some more volunteers. Sometimes I don't know. I get up and I'm not sure what day it is. I'm so overwhelmed. So if you can volunteer, in most of the work you'll be doing will be from home. It'll be on the internet, your computer, by phone. So just talk to me. By the way, did everybody fill out one of these cards? Okay, everybody have one of these cards? Okay, fill it out, and if you can help, just put under notes or comments, hey, willing to volunteer some time, and I'll be in touch with you, okay? You mentioned the great speakers coming up in October and November, and so let's go back now. Oh, we're going to take the free will offering. Don't forget about that. You'll be responsible for that for Frank. Thank you. And
I'll come back.
anyway, to write our check, make it payable to defend life. Oh, while we're doing that, one more announcement. Great things are happening down at Planned Parenthood. What are the great things that are happening at Planned Parenthood on North Howard Street? Well, number one, we're covering that abortion mill, the largest abortion mill in Maryland, every day that they're open. We have more and more people coming out to Sidewalk Council and pray. We have some wonderful black people. We have a black female OBGYN who's coming on Mondays, her day off. There's people from Huber Memorial Church in Govans, a black congregation, they're coming out. So great things are happening. The other great thing that's happening there is that the Pregnancy Health Center right next door will be opening very, very shortly. Construction is supposed to start in the next few weeks. So we'll have a place to take these women so they can see their babies on ultrasound and bond with their babies. By the way, that video she showed, I'm the young girl who played that Violet Brown. I think we should put that on a little DVD player and use that in our sidewalk counseling. And show that. There's so many resources we have. So anyway, let's get back to questions and answers.
Climate change, that's what they care about.
Who has the first question for Ann?
I do. What are the actual mechanics of buying out a theater and then getting people to come? You pay the money to the theater, then what happens?
No, you don't. No. So you do it through. We have a woman working full time on this.
Yeah.
So you write to group@gosnellmovie.com.
Yeah.
You tell her where you are, and she helps you. And also, it helps us enormously because it puts pressure on theaters to show the movie. Because we're having some, it's not easy. No part of this is easy. Group@gosnellmovie.com.
But then
and if you forget that,
it's a step after that. So say you put the pressure on and they've said yes, you can have the opening night or whatever. Then what do?
Then you tell everyone you've ever met, come meet me. It's you tell your people to come.
Do they pay or it's free?
They could pay you. I mean, you decide how to do it. Either you take money
out. You've already paid the theater.
You have paid the money. Money's gone.
Okay.
And it's up to you how do you recompense yourself.
Okay, fine. That's what I wanted to know.
Knights of Columbus Councils, they should do this. Everyone, Knights of Columbus Council should be buying out a night.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. How is Gosnell? I came in late, so
No problem.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Anyway, how is Gosnell any different than, say, Dr. Carhart, who's a late-term abortionist here in Bethesda? I mean, I have a feeling in my own gut that I think he's probably doing something along those lines that Gosnell did, and hopefully he'll get caught the same way Gosnell got caught, accidentally got caught. I mean, he should have got caught years ago from the health department and everybody else who's supposed to oversee this. So what do you think? How do you feel about it? Do you feel people like Carhart and these late-term abortionists are in that same kind of business?
Who knows what they're up to? I mean, here's what I can say with certainty is that local government and state government in most states don't want to regulate abortion, and if in an unregulated environment, they can do whatever they like. They're so protected, They're so protected. Gosnell is so protected.
So why don't they want to regulate? Because of the pro-choice?
There's a ton of regulations, by the way, but nobody wants to
enforce them.
Because we haven't done our job. That's why.
Because of political reality.
Political reality, because they're pro-abortion.
But let me say
the people in power are
specifically, because you can only speak generally.
Yeah,
in the state of Maryland, what's going on in Montgomery County is legal. Whether we like it or not,
Yeah.
it's legal. It's illegal. It's not illegal. And they don't have the same thing they have in Philadelphia. They're smart enough to at least maintain a modicum of cleanliness and all of that. So you're not going to get that horror story. Yes, he's killing babies just like...
He has the same character.
Yeah,
as
we
Gosnell.
know that, but
Yeah.
it's not the same story. First of all, murders existed under the law, not morally. Of course, morally murders taking place, I understand. But murders illegally went on for generations in Pennsylvania. That is a story. That's very, very different than a lot of, and that's why it's so important.
That's a good answer. This really is different. He was convicted not because of abortion, but he murdered these babies by cutting their spinal cord.
Live babies.
Right.
Next question.
How did you even start this whole process in Hollywood? I mean,
We got the money first.
you get the money and then you find actors?
Yeah, then you find actors. You know, this is a proper movie, so you need
Yeah.
casting directors. So you pay people.
Right.
They're called casting directors, and
Right.
this
All
is
the
what they do.
grips and all that other stuff, right?
Yeah, we have all, you know, it was an industrial process. I mean, we spent $3 million in a month. You know, it looked like it. Because you have, you have makeup, you've all that. As you say, key grips.
But you actually found a place that would actually,
No,
film it.
we didn't shoot in California. No, we shot it in Oklahoma City because it's a right to work state, and then we got flipped by the union. It cost us $170,000. We had to take a day off to shoot. Unbelievable. It's a whole other story.
Explain how your wonderful husband film got the film in the book rolling. I don't think you touched on that.
You know, he just came across the story by accident. And,
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then he had to convince
You know, you mentioned about Kavanaugh once he gets confirmed. One thing that I know that on the 27th, the full Senate will be voting on his nomination. So I would hold off until the following Monday, afterwards to promote it. Afterwards. The second point is that even though if Roe versus Wade is overturned, that does not mean that abortion will go away permanently, because you got the 10th Amendment for all the states to regulate and have 50 different laboratories.
Absolutely. Questions. We're just going to do questions. Anyone with a question? Because I'm not here for very long. Yeah, thank you.
How is this video different than the other documentary about Gosnell?
It's a movie, so it's a movie. This isn't a documentary.
Okay, so that one that was on Netflix or whatever?
Yeah, 3801 Langston.
38.
It's a documentary. It's a documentary.
Oh, so,
Yeah. So
okay.
this is not a documentary.
It's a drama, okay.
It's a movie with actors.
But is it similar to that one, or?
There's no, you can't compare, you can never compare it. Documentary is a piece of
You
journalism.
came in late, so you didn't take the trailer.
Oh, you didn't see the trailer.
explains it.
So go to Gosnell Movie and watch the trailer.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Anyone want
No other questions?
Okay.
How much is your book?
It's $30. And I'm taking today, unfortunately, it's just do cash and checks. And you can also get it online.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
guys.
much. I'm glad you're an immigrant.
And she's legal.